Hello students, let's learn English together. Today we are going to learn how to use the simple past tense. The concept of the simple past tense is quite easy. However, many students can't differentiate the grammatical rules of regular verbs from irregular verbs. As a result, they have the tendency to add ed at the end of every verb. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to describe what the simple past tense is, explain the grammatical rules when using the simple past tense, identify grammatical errors when using the simple past tense. So what are we waiting for? Let's begin! We use the simple past tense to talk about things that have already happened in the past. This means that the actions or events that we are talking about are already over at the moment of speaking. For example, Bhavani talked to her mother yesterday. The verb talked tells us that the event happened in the past. The word yesterday at the end of the sentence also tells us specifically when the conversation had taken place. Or we can say, he went to China 2 years ago. Just like the previous example, the verb went tells us that the event happened in the past. In addition, we also know that this event had taken place 2 years ago. I have given you 2 examples to show how the simple past tense can be used to show an action or event that happened in the past. Can you think of any other examples of past events in your life? It could be something that just happened yesterday or the week before. Next, I'm going to show you how to write a correct sentence using the simple past tense. Unlike the simple present tense, the spelling or the form of the verb in the simple past tense is not affected by the subject. This means that the verb will stay the same whether the subject is singular or plural. In general, there are certain grammatical rules that you have to be aware of when using the simple past tense. In this section, I am going to explain these rules in detail. In the simple past tense, verbs can be divided into 2 types. They are called regular and irregular verbs. When we use regular verbs, we normally add ed to the end of the verb. However, there are several spelling rules that you have to follow when changing the regular verbs into the simple past tense. First rule, if the verb ends with the letter E or EE, we add D at the end of the verb. For example, he used all of his allowance yesterday. We agreed to study together before the examination. If the verb ends in a consonant and has a vowel before it, we double the consonant and add ed to the end of the verb. For instance, Ashwin chatted with me last night. Sarah and Joanne travelled to Bangkok last week. The same rule also applies to one-syllable verbs. For example, Kelsey begged her mother to buy her a new smartphone. Amir and Ashrul skipped school yesterday. Lastly, if the verb ends with a Y and has a consonant before it, we change the Y to I and add ed to the end of the verb. My mother fried some sausages for breakfast. Ali and Mama tried to swim across the river a few days ago. Unlike regular verbs, we don't add ed to the end of irregular verbs. Instead, we follow a different set of rules. For some irregular verbs, we change the vowels. For instance, come becomes came. Drink becomes drank. As in, he came to my house yesterday. We drank 2 glasses of milk this morning. Some irregular verbs become new words in the past tense. For example, leave becomes left and sleep becomes slept. As in, Ashwin left my house a few minutes ago. Sarah and Joanne slept early last night. Sometimes irregular verbs do not change at all. For instance, beat remains as beat and quit remains as quit. As in, Kelsey beat me in the 200-meter race during sports day. Amir and Asrul quit smoking last year. Regular verbs are easy to understand as you only have to remember the spelling rules. However, many students struggle when using irregular verbs as they have the tendency to add ed at the end of the verb. For instance, they may spell eat as eated, sleep as sleeped, and catch as catched. For this reason, you must be able to differentiate between regular verbs and irregular verbs. Write them down so that you will remember. Now, let's test your knowledge. To test your understanding about the grammatical rules for the simple past tense, let's identify some errors from these sentences. The sentences are: you dropped your wallet on your way home yesterday, and Siti cutted the piece of paper to make some dresses for her doll. Write the sentences in your notebook and try to identify all the errors in these sentences. You can pause the video until you have completed this exercise. In order to identify the errors in these sentences, you first have to identify the verb in each sentence. Next, you have to determine whether the verb follows the grammatical rules that we have discussed. Well, are you ready? Let's check the answers now. Our first sentence is, you dropped your wallet on your way home. Can you identify the verb? Correct, it is dropped. It is a regular verb. However, the spelling of this verb is incorrect. The original form of this verb is drop. If you look closely, the verb drop ends in a consonant and has a vowel before it. Hence, we have to double the consonant and add ed to the end of this verb. So the correct answer will be, you dropped your wallet on your way home. Now let's move to our second sentence. Yesterday, Siti cutted the piece of paper to make some dresses for her doll. And the verb is cutted. Cutted? It comes from the word cut, which is an irregular verb. So we don't need to put ed at the end of the verb. Instead, we should follow the third rule when using irregular verbs. Do you still remember the rule? When we use certain irregular verbs in the simple past tense, the verb does not change at all. So this means that the word cut should keep its original form in this sentence. So the correct answer will be, yesterday, Siti cut the piece of paper to make some dresses for her doll. If you answer correctly, then it means you have mastered the simple past tense. Well done! Your knowledge of the simple past tense will become handy when you want to answer Section A, Rational Clause. This section will specifically test your knowledge and understanding in vocabulary and grammar. In the rational clause, you will be given a short text. There are 7 blanks in the text. you have to fill in the blanks with the correct answer. The answers will be presented in multiple choice form. So you have to choose your answer from the list of the words given. So how do we answer section A, rationale clause? First, read the text given. As you read, you have to determine whether the text is written in past tense or present tense. But how do we know? What are the indicators that can help us to identify the tenses? Check if the text is factual or informative. Factual or informative means the text is presenting information, ideas, or issues. Then we know verbs used are in the present tense. This type of text had appeared in the 2009, 2010, and 2014 SPM paper. However, if the text is a story or a narrative, then we know that the verbs are in the past tense. This type of text had appeared in 2011, 2012, and the 2013 SPM paper. Secondly, the verbs normally follow a similar pattern in a text. So if the text is written consistently in the past tense, then your answer will most probably be in the past tense. Now, let's look at the question sample. This extract is taken from the SPM paper for the year 2013. Before we identify the answer, I want you to read this extract. My parents gave me a priceless gift, the gift of reading. Up surrounded by books. My father, a businessman, and my mother, a teacher, were avid collectors and readers. Let's assume that we already read the text. We know that the text is written in the past tense because the text is a narrative. We also know that the past tense was consistently used throughout the text. The verbs gave, surrounded, and were are in past tense. So how do we identify the answer for question 1? Since we know that the text is written in the past tense, the answer is very obvious. Among all the answers given, the only verb written in the past tense is A, grew. So we will automatically know that A is the correct answer for question number 1. Well, isn't that easy? I hope that these tips will help you when answering your exam questions. Good luck in your SPM! I hope you have learned new things from this video and I hope to see you again. Till next time, bye!